episode 214 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. This is a special episode I wanted to get out right away of my recent conversation with industry exec and consultant Jim Thomsen. Jim is working with the Small Business Development Center here in the Eastern Sierra, helping small businesses navigate these challenging times and gives some great info and resources everyone can use. Be sure to check out the show notes at theoutdoorbizpodcast.com/episode 214. No spaces. That way you get all the show notes, Jim's email, follow up with him on any questions you have, and we look forward to talking soon. Hey, so if you've been listening to this show and following me on all the digital and social places, you know how much I believe in podcasting as a tool for expanding your reach. Podcasting is a great way to engage your audience directly through your voice. And the human voice, yes, your voice to be exact, is one of your most important superpowers. Your podcast will inspire and motivate your followers near and far. If you've considered adding a podcast to your toolkit, let's jump on a call and I'll explain how you can add one to your quiver. Visit podcastersworkshop.com/brainstorm and I will walk you through the steps so you can get started. Early in his outdoor career, he worked with Dick Kelty. He started a couple of outdoor businesses with his brother, more than a couple actually, was an executive with VF for quite a few years, and has taken numerous adventures around the world with his wife, Katie, and is now helping small businesses navigate these challenging times as we work our way through this pandemic. I'm thrilled to catch up again with Jim Thomsen. Welcome back to the show, Jim.
Good to talk to you again, Rick.
Yeah, good to have you on. I think you were on the show, it was like episode 3 or something, wasn't it?
It was sometime when you were just starting.
Yeah, I remember the first time we did it, I didn't get any audio. I didn't have my mics connected right.
And now you're up to, 150? Or?
200, and this will be 215, I think, or something.
Wow, impressive. Congratulations.
Crazy. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's super fun. I learned a lot along the way, I'll tell you. It's been a great experience talking to everybody. Let's see. Let's start with, how did you get involved? So let's go with your background, your outdoor background first. You've been in the outdoor industry a long time. As I said, you were founder of Wilderness Experience. You had a long career at VF. Tell everybody a little bit of that in a nutshell. We'll start with that.
Well, real quick, I actually started in the 60s. I worked for Dick Kelty in the days when I would assemble frame packs in the back room and then come out to the store and sell something if somebody came in and wanted to buy something. So that was my first outdoor work, managed the store, and then my brother and I started Wilderness Experience in 1971. And by the middle 70s, we had grown quite a bit, and we made sleeping bags, tents, jackets, packs. We had 3 factories in the United States with a couple hundred employees. We took the company public. I decided that I could afford to go back and try to climb again. I bought a couple of outdoor mountaineering stores and did that. And then when stores were real hard to make money and hard to make those work, I went into partnership with Larry Harrison, also one of your first people that you interviewed. Mm-hmm. Right. And we did a sales organization for 10 years, selling a lot of brands, a lot of ski brands, bike brands, snowboarding, some of the first snowboards, and also JanSport. And then in 1994, VF Corporation bought Janssen Swimwear, they bought, I think it was Wrangler, who owned Janssen Swimwear, who owned JanSport. And I don't think they really wanted JanSport. And so they hired me to combine their offices, which are in Seattle and also in the Midwest, and they set it up as a separate division. But because I got to know the top people, I kept pushing them to, look at the outdoor business. This is, I thought it was a really exciting business, and they were only into apparel, so they never did anything. But in those days, they didn't have an acquisition committee. So somebody working in the company would come to the head people, and I don't know how it is today, and say, hey, this is a cool company. You should look at it. And I did that, presented the North Face to them. The way the acquisitions worked at VF is that you'd present it, do the presentations, and if they liked the idea, then they would say, okay, we're going to buy this, and you would have to run it. And so that's why you never want to make you didn't want to do a goal way too high because your pay and your bonus was based on hitting that goal. Yeah. And you didn't want to make it too low because then it wouldn't buy the company. Oh, right. So it was that hard line to pick the lowest number that they'd be excited about and the one you were sure you could exceed and get the big bonuses on. And so they accepted North Face as one to go after. And so that was exciting. And during the same time, we had a chance to buy Eastpak, which was not that big in the United States, but in Europe was 250, maybe almost $300 million in sales.
Wow.
Except it was owned by Coleman, and Coleman had offices in 25 countries or so. But part of the agreement on buying is we had to move out of every single office within 6 months, and their offices had the invoicing, it had the country managers, it had everything. So I had to go over there, and I didn't know anything about Europe. I only know the fun parts of Europe. So I had to open 22 offices in 6 months and hire country managers, set up distribution, set up invoicing system, all that fun stuff. In all these different. And in those days, that was before the euro, so every single one was a different currency. But it was so much fun. And then the North Face deal closed, and my position was always going to be to come back to be president of North Face. But it was so much fun what I was doing. And if I would have come back to North Face, it would have been exactly what I'd done my whole life. It would have been the same retailers I already knew. It would have been the same, everything it would have been a big challenge, but still would have been stuff I knew. Europe, I knew nothing about, and it was so much fun. And then we started opening, some places in Asia. And so I ended up staying in Europe, and then got excited when I saw the Kipling brand, which also isn't that big in the United States, but it was probably the 300 million also worldwide. And they actually owned retail stores all over the world, including in mainland China and places. So that became the next acquisition target that I was involved in. And so I became president of that also.
Cool.
And then I helped on the acquisitions of Vans and other companies that they bought. And it all worked out pretty well.
It worked out pretty well.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well. Enough that by the end of 2005, I decided to retire early and take all that bonus money. And Katie and I, we bought a sailboat, and then we spent 10 years sailing around the world.
Nice.
And so that was absolutely perfect. And then came back to the United States about 3 years ago. And we had sold our house in Mammoth, but we still had a couple of condos we were renting out. And we decided to come into one, see if we liked it. If not, we'd fix it up and sell it. And we realized we just love Mammoth.
Yeah, cool.
So we moved back, and we've done a bunch of fun trips. We got to go to Mongolia with Steve Barker, who was also one of your first people you interviewed.
Yeah.
And we just got back from Patagonia. It seems like so long ago, but it was in March.
You guys are getting around. Yeah, that's great. I'm living vicariously through you. It's all the trips you're doing. You hiked the John Muir Trail, I think, recently too, right?
Yep. That was a goal since I worked for Kelty in the 60s. And we finally did it last year. And we did it slow. We took 30 days.
I would do it slow too. That's a good way to do it.
You're not going to set a new record.
Right, exactly.
I don't know what it is now, 2.5 days or something. So, might as well enjoy it. I got to climb little peaks, and, we had a great time. So it was a super fun thing to do last summer.
And so all that experience of setting up those businesses and making those pitches and all that stuff have positioned you pretty well for understanding some of the pitfalls that some of these businesses are going under these days with the COVID and struggling and whatnot. And you're helping a lot of them through some SBA programs. How did you get involved with the SBA?
Okay, there's an organization called the Small Business Development Centers. Okay. And they're all over the country, and they're funded by the SBA. But what they offer is, in normal times, really excellent business consulting. They'll help you do business plans and cash flow statements. And they have experts in all the offices to help you with, if you wanted to work out social media programs or marketing plans. They have people who specialize in that, or any finance things, or, putting together not just SBA loans, but all kinds of different financing to help small businesses. And the SBA funds this, and the work that the Small Business Development Centers do is totally free to businesses.
Oh, very
and
cool.
I'd known about it, but I'd never really worked with it. And it's a super great group of people. Every business should sign up with them because you don't have to listen to anybody. You could ask them anything. They have all kinds of resources, and it's 100% free.
Wow, that's a great deal.
Pretty good deal. And they do conferences around the state quite often, or actually all over the country. But the group in Central California also has the Eastern Sierra, which, since the head offices are in president of Bakersfield. This is not a convenient place for them to come over.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But once a year, they would do a big economic conference here explaining different things that they could do. And this last one, they asked me to be a speaker there because they wanted a section on crowdfunding. And I had just done the Kickstarter program for the Wilderness Experience Cul-de-sac.
Right.
So
yeah, cool.
And since I had done it all myself, I kind of learned all the little parts of it all along. And so I was just one of the speakers there, and I got to know the director and the other people. He kept saying, you would be perfect. You got to help us over here in Eastern Sierra because we have businesses that could use some help.
Yeah.
And I said, well, sounds perfect. This was in November. I said, perfect, except we're going to Mexico for December and we're going to Patagonia from January till March. And, you'll once in a while, you'll be able to, if you can help somebody, it'd be great. We'll just, just have you.
They work with your
available.
Calendar. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And so I helped one store in January for about 2 hours of my time.
Wow.
So I was never going to be a very good consultant just because I'm not going to be around. But then we got back from Patagonia and got back here, and all of a sudden we're stuck, inside our condo with nothing going on.
Yeah, can't travel, right?
And every business in town having a problem.
Right.
And so they called and said, would you start helping on these? And, a lot of people are stuck at home with nothing to do. And I'm busier than I've ever been.
Wow, that's great. Yeah. So
how
are you helping? What are you doing with businesses?
Most of it over this last month has been trying to get the different SBA loans because those are ones that have been pushed. There's a lot of money behind them. The loans are actually really good. For businesses, but it's still government loans. So it's not easy. It's not something that you can just apply for. Nothing's easy if you're going through the government.
Right.
And so what I'm doing is helping the different businesses first understand the different loans and why one may be better for them than another, the good points of them, the bad points of them, and then how to apply and how to get all their information together and then get the loan getting it approved. So that's been what I've really spent the most of my time doing
lately. Yeah. And how many there's 3-4 different types of loans available? Do I have that right? Or is there more than that?
Yeah, there's actually more, but there's two main ones.
Yeah.
And it's the ones you probably that nobody would have ever known before, except now they're in the news a lot.
Yeah.
One was called the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. And it's actually part of the SBA disaster program, which normally it's when there's an earthquake or a hurricane or something is where they come in and help rebuild things.
Oh, gotcha.
And so they use that same program for this, except the record they had ever had, and I think it was Katrina, they had 11,000 applicants over a 3-day period, which was way more than they could handle. On this one, they had 3 million in 4 days.
Oh, my God.
So when people say, it's impossible to deal with them, you can't get anything done, yeah, they probably weren't prepared for this.
Yeah, right, exactly. Overwhelmed them, right. And so, and the other one's the payroll deal?
And the other one is called the Payroll Protection Plan.
Gotcha. Yep.
And that's really to try to keep businesses paying their employees. So from a government point of view, it's trying to keep people from having to be laid off and then go collect unemployment. And from the business, it allows them, if they've got good employees, to keep those people, keep paying them. If they offer health insurance and those things, then to keep paying those. And if they take the money and actually do that, the loan is 100% forgiven.
Wow.
So,
cool. And this is whether the business is open or not. If the business is closed and the people are at home, this is designed to keep the employees getting paid rather than going on unemployment. But even
right.
Okay, so the business doesn't have to be open. Got it.
No, it does not have to be open. And some, like one of the ones I have, one of his locations, he was trying to do rebuilding inside, and it was always a problem because they were working. And now he has 2 of his employees working, doing work inside rebuilding one of their buildings.
Oh, cool.
So, and they're, with 2 people in there, they can make it safe and no problem. Right. And so he's actually getting use out of the employees rather than paying them. I've got a couple other ones that had young employees that were more of the mammoth because they wanted to be skiing and playing, but are really good on computer things and setting up websites and things. So they're getting a lot of work from these guys, helping them finally get a good website, which they've never had before.
That's great, yeah.
And so there are things that can be done by the employees, even though you can't open. One restaurant I know is, having a couple of them do a absolute complete cleaning of it because they know when it reopens, that's going to be an issue.
Yeah, right.
And so they have these people doing it. So sometimes people won't have anything to do. but smart businesses will come up with things that people can do that help them.
Take advantage of that, yeah. And is the payroll protection loan probably the more popular of both of those loans, or are they equally inundated?
It really depends on which way. The problem with the payroll protection plan loan is that it's made for paying employees.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
if you have a lot, and you can pay rent and utilities, but only with 25% of the money.
Okay.
So if you have a lot of other fixed expenses, it's not going to really help you.
Gotcha.
And that, in a lot of cases, like I'm dealing with a few motels and places like that,
right. Mm-hmm.
where their overall costs are way beyond the employee costs. Mm-hmm. I mean, so then that economic injury disaster loan is better, because that one is a true loan. It can't be forgiven, but it is 3.75% interest from 15 to 30 years.
Oh, wow.
So it's a low interest, long-term loan, and you don't start paying for 6 months. So if you're just trying to make sure you survive in business and you have a lot of other expenses, that's a better loan.
Yeah, that's a good deal. Yeah. Neither
of them have a prepayment penalty. So I've encouraged people to apply for both if they qualify. Just because I know from running business a lot, it's more fun to have too much cash in the bank than not enough.
Yeah, that's usually a problem most people don't have.
No, and if in 6 months you decide that, hey, wow, everything worked out fine, I don't need it. Interest didn't start for 6 months. You just pay it back, and
there you go.
No payment. So to me, it makes sense to apply for them, but it's something that needs to be done.
Well, you have to clearly understand what you're dealing with, yeah. And how exactly are you working with these? So you're mostly helping them fill out the applications? Are you doing a little bit of a dive into their business to see how their business is getting along? What kind of things are you doing that way?
Well, usually diving into the business first, because that, in some cases, will determine whether one of those loans or not. Yeah.
Right.
And some it may even bring up a different loan. Like if somebody had a building that's pretty high payments, we can refinance that through an SBA loan to lower their payments. Mm-hmm. So you have to learn enough about the business to let them know what needs to be done, and then to decide on the loan what information they're going to have to get together for that loan. Mm-hmm. And then especially the people who are getting the payroll protection plan loans, to make sure that they understand what they have to do with that money and how to keep track of it accounting-wise, so they can get it forgiven. Because it would be terrible to spend it the right way and not have the correct records and not get it forgiven. Right. So that's it. But a lot of it is just talking to people, because people are having a hard time, and sometimes it's so sad. Talk to who's been working for 20 years on a business, and they may lose it.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is just letting them talk and trying to offer whatever I can.
Right.
Yeah. And I have, in my view, well, you know me, I'm pretty optimistic. So I always think of things they should be doing, and we really encourage people to do the gift certificate programs, things like that will allow them to raise some money now.
Yeah.
Gift cards, there's two different parts. Some where you can actually buy what would be a gift certificate for something you're going to buy in advance, and I actually recommended it to a couple of people, and then we bought some, because like with running shoes, we know we're going to buy a couple pair of running shoes next year for Positive or later this year.
Yeah.
And so a $300 gift certificate is great, and I know it helps them a lot now.
Yeah.
And it's we're paying in advance for them, but we're going to spend it, so that's fine.
Yeah.
The other one is I got quite a few little restaurants and coffee places doing the gift certificate law. Some or people have not even working with as clients, just telling them they should do it.
Good idea.
And that has worked out really good. And Katie just went into Stellar Brew the other day, and they were selling gift certificates.
Oh, cool.
So she bought 10 of them and went over next door to the post office and gave them to all the people there.
Oh, cool. That's nice. That's awesome.
So those type of things, something that businesses have to think about is like, is there any way of getting any money right now?
Get creative, yeah. How many businesses do you work with that actually are not online? Is it half of them, or because it's surprising how many people still don't sell online?
Yeah, I would say it's 3/4.
Really,
and some of the ones that are selling online are not doing well.
Interesting.
And part of it is because last few years up here, business has been good, both Bishop and them, and so I don't think people have had to. It's not near as critical, and now it's very, very critical. Yeah. But I'm pushing it a lot. Like, here's the first chance you have where business isn't overpowering all your time.
Yeah, you have time
work
to
on
set it up.
this.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And I truly believe, I mean, not me, I think it's everybody, is that people are getting used to how much they can order online.
Yeah.
And well, now the fact that we can have fish tacos and margaritas brought to our house.
We don't have that down here in Bishop yet. We don't have a DoorDash or anything yet, but that's awesome. At least
I'll find out.
that I'm aware of. I better look into that.
There might be. I mean, and maybe somebody is doing it, because there's a couple up here doing it. So
I'll check that out. Yeah. So
yeah, the one up here is doorstep deliveries.
Okay, I'll check that out.
They want to check that.
Yeah.
But that's the type of things that, the past never thought of. But I could see it in the future if we wanted to watch a movie.
Oh, of course.
Fish tacos and margaritas brought to our door.
Perfect. Exactly. Yeah, that's awesome.
So I think everybody is, buying so much. I've noticed just the couple of neighbors we have that are year-round people up here. You have more boxes than ever coming to their house.
Yeah, a lot of people are not going to the store. They're avoiding the store by buying from Costco and Amazon or wherever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So how many businesses have reached out to you? Is it like 25, 10? What would you say?
There's a bunch. There's two categories. One is if I'm going to really help them with the loan and get their have their information.
Yeah.
They have to sign up through the Small Business Development Center.
Okay.
And they have to sign a thing saying that, that we first promise that everything they tell us is 100% confidential and won't never. And also they have to say that, if I tell them to do something and they do it and it was a stupid idea, they can't sue the SBDC. And so that's the people who officially sign up. Mm-hmm. And I currently have about 35 clients on that.
Wow.
Between Bishop's probably 10 of those.
Okay.
And the rest, and a couple in Bridgeport, and the rest in Mammoth.
Yep.
And then I have probably about another 15 or 18 that are parts of the on the Chamber of Commerce and things that I'm just answering general questions for,
gotcha.
helping them a little bit. But if I don't need to have the information, then I don't. The only reason I want people to sign up and why I think it's really critical, at first I just kind of ignored it because I didn't care, is because the SBDCs, when they go back for funding in the future, they'll show how many people they helped during this, and how many they worked with, and that will help their funding a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So now I'm encouraging, and I think everybody should sign up because they've got a lot of great stuff you get for free.
It's free
anyway.
resources. Yeah, that's huge.
Right.
Yeah,
and you could just blow it off if you don't like it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
and then there's probably about another 15 or 20 around the country, mostly outdoor people that we both know,
right.
That I'm just helping. And if it's out of California, I don't know as much about the California programs, or the other state programs, but
right.
But I'm
that makes sense.
doing that too. So it's a lot. So it's pretty much. Katie said that I've never been on the phone this much since the early days when I was a sales rep.
Yeah, I can imagine. You're burning through phone batteries. Keep plugged into the wall. Yeah. So back to the loan part of the conversation. How are the lenders performing?
If you talk to the people getting the loans, and I read the news and stuff, people hate it and they think it's terrible.
Yeah, on the news, it's pretty sketchy. Yeah.
The problem is that the banks weren't ready for it either. Our bank here, little bank here, has two people who are great, the manager and assistant manager. And I know them both, and I like them, and they really try hard. And they probably, I have no idea what they used to do, probably a couple loans a week.
Yeah.
And then they got like 150 applications the first couple of days.
Jeez.
And I know they're working hard because the bank manager up here sent me an email at 10 o'clock at night on Saturday. This last
he probably hasn't worked. He probably hasn't worked that late in years.
No, they and so I know, and I talked to them. I know they're all. And I'm working with about 7 or 8 different banks that I'm actually talking to. They're all working so hard. So I know they're trying. Good. The other criticisms that's come in on banks is that they were working with their bigger customers and their current customers first, and that's definitely true. But realistically, if you were an outdoor store,
that kind of makes sense.
Your best customer came in, you'd probably treat them really great. Yeah,
kind of makes sense.
I talked to one of the women at one of the other banks. She was saying, like, a lot of these customers are the big customers, but they're the ones that if they go out of business, it will hurt the bank a lot.
Right.
Because they almost said it's not really just because they want to help the biggest people. It's one, they have all the information already, so they don't. It's not like they have to have somebody gather information. And second is they want those to succeed. So, so those two are true.
Gotcha.
The bad part was some of the big companies that got loans that should have never been eligible.
Yeah, I've been following some of that on the news too. Yeah. So that about the loan programs from the news, the parameters seem to be changing every day. What's that like? That's got to be wreak havoc for your business.
Yeah, and I don't think I put you on my list, but I started a month ago.
I get your emails every day. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Those
the
are great.
daily newsletter.
Yeah.
And it seemed like I was starting off everyone by, first, what I told you yesterday is wrong.
That's right. That's right. I remember that. A couple weeks ago, they all started out like that.
Yeah, and that's still, and now I'm at least saying, here's what I think, but there's other opinions and nobody knows. That's the other thing I'm usually not. The biggest one, that economic injury disaster loan, is getting a little clearer, but the payroll protection plan loan, of how you get it forgiven, there's no guidelines out on that yet.
Oh, wow.
And I read these groups that have some attorney group writing them their opinion and things.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. And the guidelines have to be out within 30 days of when the bill was passed in Congress. So the deadline is
they're running up against it. Yeah.
April 26th is the deadline. So we'll see. I have no idea if the SBA doesn't do it. Like, what are you going to do? So
what happens? Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, there was some guy on the news yesterday talking about how it's a fraud, and he stewed over all weekend trying to figure out whether to get the money or not, and decided to send it back. But he says basically because of that, it's a fraud. You can just take the money and keep it, and you're never going to repay it.
Well, yeah. The only thing is where I think that one, what's the big hamburger group that made the news? We got $10 million.
Ruth Chris, the steakhouse.
It was them, and there was another one too, Shake Shack or something.
Oh, okay.
Both of them have like 5,000 employees, and they got these loans, and now they're both giving them back. But the other thing is, those loans were only forgivable if you could hire the people back,
right?
And you have to do it within 8 weeks of when you get the money. So they received the money about 2 weeks ago. That means they only have 8 weeks to spend it, and they're in places where they're not allowed to reopen. So they weren't going to be able to easily bring people back anyway.
Yeah. And
then it was a loan that they would absolutely have to pay back anyway. So the fact they're paying it back and trying to get a lot of PR credit for paying it back, I'm not sure that's really justified.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I was going to say the new rules that have just come out are making it much more stringent on number of employees, and now they're going to not allow public corporations to do it, and there are quite a few other things. So they are realizing the problems.
Yeah. So it was this thing happened pretty quickly, and I think everybody's been rushing to get resources in people's hands. So it's no surprise that they had some challenges along the way, but it's good to hear that they're getting it all buttoned up. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say the new bill that just passed and got signed, I guess, just a few hours ago, has some new provisions in it that's really, really good. And, completely ignoring the politics, who's right and wrong.
Right.
The original plan was for $250 billion to go just directly towards the payroll protection plan. And that was the original one that was brought up in Congress that the Democrats wouldn't vote for. And then the fight started. And now that's been increased to $310 billion, so a lot more for that.
Good.
That economic injury disaster loan, which was getting no more money, got $60 billion, which is really important because that's a lot of smaller businesses. And they also got through setting aside $60 billion for rural and minority and women-owned businesses.
Oh, good.
Which, for our area,
it's all rural.
So the idea there is to reserve some money for these areas and not let it all go just to the big cities.
Yeah, these small
so
towns,
those are things that passed on this most recent one that are going to be really good for us.
Yeah, that's
and for real small businesses.
Yeah, and the other issue that some of these small businesses have in rural towns like this is some of the employees aren't going to be available to come back, so you can't hire them back. Right? They're either going to move or just drop off the face of the earth, as some of them do. Who knows where they go, but they just disappear. So
you have a lot of people like we were talking about. We live in a wonderful place, so a lot of people come here even for a couple of years to work and play. And if they leave, they're not necessarily coming back.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and some of the folks at the lower end of the pay scale too, they move on to other places where there's work. Right, they got to go where there's work. So
yeah.
So in addition to all these loans and, looking at gift cards and stuff, what should business be doing now besides trying to get loans and obviously all the other things you talked about, website online sales and gift cards. What kind of things should they be doing now in addition to
Well,
that?
to me, the most critical thing that you should be doing right now is, well, number one, conserving cash. Make sure you save that cash, and that means calling everybody you owe money to, every payment you have, and trying to get them to either defer the payments or forgive some, or to give you longer terms or something. And I know it's really hard, and I've had retail stores that I've had trouble paying. It's hard calling people, but you just have to do it. You got to not be proud about this. At least at this time, nobody's going to ask you what really happened because they know what happened.
Right. We're all in this together, so everybody's going to know what happened.
Yeah.
April of 2020. Yeah,
right. You don't have to explain. It's not because you're a bad businessman.
Right.
And some of your creditors are going to be, like I'm dealing with a couple that the guys own industrial buildings, and they don't have a lot of money. They have a few months worth of available cash, but that's all. They bought the building with the idea of people paying them. And,
right.
But you need to go out to every single person that you pay any money to, including government loans, which are their SBA loans, are giving you 6 months free. They're actually making the payments for you. So if you had an SBA loan on your building, you're really winning on that right now. And taxes can be put off. There's all kinds of things, but most of them require you actually call and ask. So you should be doing all of that. The second most important thing, kind of tied in with that, is to do a true cash flow statement. Something that I always have told everybody in business you have to do, because that's the critical thing. Keep your cash flow statement and update it as things change so you know what position you're in. And now it's more critical than ever. And it is really hard to guess what your revenue is going to be this month or next month or the month after. But you should be able to get to the point where you kind of have an idea what money you're going to have to pay out. And the first time you do a cash flow statement, it's not going to be accurate, but you should be updating that every few days. Just if nothing else, it makes you think about your business,
right? And
it will tell you that you're going to have a problem in a little more advance. Some of the people that are calling me this week, or trying to do loans and stuff, I was thinking, like, didn't this occur to you a month ago? I don't say that,
sure.
But it's kind of for you to finally realize now you have a money problem.
Well, I think like a lot of small businesses in rural areas, the folks that start them just, started them because it was a thing they were doing and somebody wanted to pay them to do it for them and they started doing it. They're not business folks to begin with. So none of this stuff have they ever been exposed to. It's all learning for them.
Right. And if they've opened businesses in the last 10 years, they've had a really strong economy the whole time.
Right.
So they've never had to go through, the bad times that.
And so what kind of things should they be doing now for the future? Because at some point we're going to come out of this.
Yeah. I think if you look at the future, there's two levels of the future. One is the next 6 months, and it will end, and we will open for business, whatever date that is. It's going to happen. And the worst thing you could do is wait till finally they say, okay, now you can reopen, and not have any idea how you're going to do this. Right. So reopening plans are something you should start now. That's what I'm, doing with a couple of the restaurants, saying, you are going to have to reopen, but they probably will put really strict guidelines on sanitation and cleaning and all those type of things. So get caught up now while you have people that don't have.
You're probably going to have less tables on the floor. You're not going to be able to pack it in. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you can figure all that out. And the one advantage, and I don't know if it's fair, but the one advantage California has, and I know you're nationwide, so is that we have a lot of states that are going to open before us.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really obvious to see what things they do right and what things they do wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there'll be examples of businesses that do it really right and ones that screw up so bad that they end up not being able to reopen.
Well, that's going to happen either way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But we can actually look at it. So we'll have, maybe a month advance notice if you're planning, if you're going to have a restaurant reopening, see how the rest of them do over this month in other states.
That's good.
That's
good advice.
And learn from those mistakes.
Sure.
But you should be planning for whatever you're going to do in the next 6 months. And that also includes, like your point of, if you're going to need employees and people have left town or not available, how are you going to make this work? I mean, don't just believe you can reopen. And definitely if you're a restaurant or something that needs a lot of employees, you can't wait till then to decide that, how are we going to do? So that's I think the most critical right now is like, what happens over 6 months?
Gotcha.
And what happens if we're closed down for 3 months? Is that,
right?
And I would do cash flow statements based on the most negative outlook, because again, back to that same thing. It's always more fun to end up with more cash.
Yeah, plan for worst case, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about the next few years? So if we get out
Yeah.
of this in 6 months, and then, because I think your point about cash flow statements is great, and then there's a lot of other financial documents that I think some of these businesses just don't know about and don't have.
Yeah. Well, the big thing, and this is something that has always been around, is successful businesses really do strategic planning for the future, looking where they want to be in a year and 5 years. And everybody you can think of has done that.
I do it for my little podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know anybody, maybe some people can do it all in their head. But then it's hard to keep it updated. So, and the other problem with doing that is if you have a really successful business, small business, you don't have time to do that. And it's what gets ignored all the time.
Right. Yeah.
So now it's time to be looking at that. What do I want to do? Where do I really want to end up? A year from now, we want to survive.
Yeah.
And we want to do this, but where do I want to go beyond that? And is there something we should be doing that will help us hit a 5-year goal?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think, and you and I have both been through a bunch of recessions, nothing like this, but times when a lot of stores have closed, there's been big problems. Basically, there's some number of businesses that just fail and don't make it through it. Yeah. And there's another group that survive and come out of it. But then there's always those people that come out and just thrive.
Yep.
And you look back,
you
look back and go, he just did everything right.
Yeah.
And part of that, I think, is planning. And, the one thing about, it's really sad to say, but if you have people that are going to not make it, in your community, you probably definitely your competition, and you could probably guess which ones are going to make it, and which ones aren't. Mm-hmm. These are opportunities to look at, and that's what and that's my optimistic side. What I'd be doing right now is like, what do we want to do here? I mean, it may be the perfect time to buy the building you're renting. Right. Maybe the perfect time to, maybe it's to buy a competitor that is going to go out of business anyway. I don't know what it is in every industry, but I know that when we look back 2 or 3 years from now, we're going to see people that did the right things, and we're going to think, wow, they were so smart.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would say, other than just surviving, that's the most important thing that somebody could be doing today.
Mm-hmm. Planning and looking for opportunities. I like it.
Yeah.
And so there are people like you around the country available to help these business owners. How can they find their local resource? Just look for the...
it could do it, but I will send you the link.
Okay, cool. We'll put that in the show notes.
Somebody puts it in their zip code number, and it will do it. And ignore the fact that it seems a funny place, because I had a bunch of people in Mammoth say, the closest office is Bakersfield. That's not what I want. But here, that happens to be the closest office.
Yeah, as the crow flies, exactly.
And I just happen to be the only person on the Eastern Sierra. So people that are calling the Bakersfield woman running it says, people are saying they want to make sure they get you. And there is no other choice.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So maybe that's a reason not to do it. But
yeah. That'd be good. We'll put that link in the show notes. That'll be great.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's really an important one. I could also give you the links for the different loan programs, just in case somebody wants to look it up and have the information.
Very helpful. Yep. People might not know about that. Yep. And what advice do you have for folks looking for help? Just reach out, just make the call. Don't hesitate.
Yeah, I would. And I think there's, partly definitely for getting, payments put off, but for help. And one of the people I met up here is, I don't know if she lives up here, but she works with a lot of companies. She's, super top at marketing, super top at social media. Mm-hmm. And she's been making really good money, because I know a couple of people that work with her.
Oh, cool.
And she's been doing great, except all of a sudden now her income has stopped. And so she's looking for grants and things, which she's able to get some money from the SBA and from the SBDC to help fund her help businesses.
Oh, cool.
So somebody up here, or somebody on the East Side who wants to finally jump on social media correctly can get the help for free.
Great. Yeah.
And it's awesome. Somebody that most small businesses could never afford to get, from a person that qualified. Wow, and that just happens to be the example I know here. I'm sure every single place is examples of people that would help. And there's so many different economic development deals out there that somebody is going to get paid by a government agency or SBA or somebody to help you.
Yeah.
And take advantage. The other thing is SBDC runs them, but there's quite a few other really excellent webinars. And I've been watching a lot, mostly tied to loans and that, but they have webinars constantly on strategic planning, on cash flow, on all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of information. And again, if you're busy working all the time, it's hard to watch those.
Exactly.
But if you,
now you have the time.
You have a few hours, this is the time to take advantage because, never before have you had this much free time to work on stuff.
Yeah. And when things do get back to normal and open back up, you're not going to have time again. It's going to be,
right.
You're going to be running and gunning, trying to get things open and get things cleaned, to hire people back, and all that stuff. So no, that's great.
No, take advantage of this. I mean, it's terrible, but there's a good thing about having some spare time to actually think and work on stuff.
Yeah, and you're right. There's all kinds of resources online. I go online all the time just to look at various social media strategies and how to do webinars. And, I'm launching the Podcasters Workshop and trying to help people with podcasting. So I'm learning how to launch that side of the business. And there's all kinds of stuff on YouTube and other places of learning how to do those things. So don't hesitate to go poke around online and search for what you need, and it'll show up. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, I do want to just throw in one more thing because I'd forgotten about this. A lot of the online financial companies are now, as of this last week, starting to offer the payroll protection plan loans.
Oh, the online lenders. Okay, got you.
Yeah, but like PayPal is doing it.
Oh, okay.
QuickBooks
mm-hmm.
and let's see, I know Square is doing it.
Gotcha.
And there's a few of those that are big reputable companies. They're not going to charge you 20% interest.
Right.
And these loans are interest controlled by the SBA, so you're not going to get hit with a big loan.
It's the same SBA loan. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So and I've had 2 people apply. Nobody's gotten money yet, but 2 applied this morning and got loans applications accepted. So
cool, awesome, great.
That's a new one that I had forgotten about.
Good. Well, we'll link to those too. As we wrap up, is there anything else you want to ask of listeners or say to our listeners?
No. I mean, hey, stay well, stay safe, stay indoors. Don't. That's an issue in all resort areas that we don't have hospitals to handle problems.
Yeah, and stay. I don't know if any people will listen to this about the fishing opener, but just stay home for now. It's going to open June 1. Be plenty of fishing. Let's just stay home and do our thing.
Yeah, I know it's really terrible to have that happen, but if the biggest issue you have is that you're worried about fishing not opening for an extra month and a half, you're one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, exactly. Consider yourself fortunate.
Grateful.
And right. Yeah. And so if people want to follow up with you, what's the best way to reach out with you?
You can put my email address also on your thing, and I'm happy to answer questions for people if they're just general, easy questions. But I would encourage people to sign up with their local small business development
go to
center.
the local resource first. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll put your email on the show notes and put your LinkedIn connection there too, in case people want to reach out that way.
Perfect.
Cool. Well, thanks, Jim. It's been fun catching up.
It's always fun to talk to you. Every time we've talked, we've had beer. This is the first time we've done it without beer.
I know. We got to do it again. We got to get together soon for a social distancing happy hour out in the hills somewhere.
Perfect. Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. Have a good afternoon.
All right. You too. Take it easy. Thank you for listening. If you want more of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, be sure and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcast. Be sure and go to the outdoorbizpodcast.com where you find all the episodes, show notes, and much, much more. Have a great week and be sure to get outside.